Thanks everybody for your patience. Let me start the webinar rolling. So hi again, my name is Miguel from InspireTech. I'll be your moderator today. So the main theme of today's webinar is how can we actually help secure your customer's document using our flagship product EasiShare and at the same time grow your business itself. So our main speaker for today will be Teck Wei, the product manager at InspireTech. But before we kick things rolling, we have Valerie from Crayon to do a simple opening address. And she is the channel's account manager at Crayon. So over to you, Valerie.
Thank you, Miguel. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this short technology enablement webinar. My name is Valerie, and I'm channel account manager in Crayon. I have been with Crayon since 2016, and Crayon just celebrated 20th anniversary. Unlike the traditional distributor, we are focusing to build up partners' capabilities, helping them to reach new market segments and modernize their approaches to business processes and marketing. Our channel partners can leverage on Crayon's IP, such as Cloud IQ, Cloud Advisory, and AI practice to transform their own IP or services digitally to meet unique customer needs. We create the platform for partner ecosystem to drive partner growth in and out of Asia Pacific. InspireTech is one of our managed partners. Their solutions are created with your organization needs in mind, offering secure digital content collaboration and communication platform that empower workforce with a better way to do more. Today, InspireTech will do a mind sharing session on their solution so that everyone here can unlock new revenues opportunities for their company. Without further ado, I would like to pass the stage back to Miguel.
Thanks, Valerie. So before we get the webinar rolling, just a bit of administrative stuff. And in the midst of the webinar, if you do have any questions, just hit the Q&A button just right at the panel below. And yeah, so I would like to just share a bit about a bit of background of who InspireTech is, if anybody here doesn't know. So InspireTech, we are actually established in 2000 and we are headquartered in Singapore. And actually, we do cover, our focus market is actually covered around South Asia and Middle East itself, mainly countries in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, and UAE. And our development centers are all situated within Russia and Indonesia itself. So now we want to get back to the main topic of today, where we are trying to showcase our product that I'll be sharing. So what is EasiShare? So to put it very simply, EasiShare is actually a single platform that helps to secure, manage, and govern files effortlessly across different data storages itself. So what do I really mean when I say secure, manage, and govern our files? So when I talk about secure, we want to secure the sharing and collaboration of files that is done internally and externally. So when it comes to manage, we enable IT to actually manage the security policies and controls across all their data storages, be it on-premise, cloud, or even in the hybrid architecture itself. And lastly, when we talk about govern, we think about how IT can actually govern the access, who can has the access, what kind of files, to what kind of files, and so that they can meet their internal policies and compliance requirements. And after that, I will actually get Teck Wei to do a bit of deep dive onto why actually our customers across the government and enterprise sector that actually uses EasiShare. So over to you, Teck Wei.
Thanks, Miguel, for the quick introduction about InspireTech and EasiShare as well. And thanks, Valerie, for kickstarting the webinar as well as partnering with us to do this mind sharing with the partners that we have today. Yeah, so over at my end, I think just to reinforce, right, the purpose of this session is really to add on the new capabilities for our audience here today to share with your customers like something different that and offer them something more than your existing capabilities. So in order to answer this question, right, that Miguel has passed to me, right, we really need to go back to sharing with you, like, why do some of our customers here buy EasiShare? And in order to do that, I'm splitting my session into 3 parts. First is really some high-level trends that we observe over recent years that is driving the demand for our product. Secondly is really then drill down to specific examples. So a little bit of a teaser is that a lot of times we get compared to SharePoint, and I think would like to address that as well, since some of the partners here might already be carrying Microsoft 365 products or SharePoint as well. And finally, at the third stage, right, I'll be sharing you specific customer use cases that we have successes in, two in particular, one in the healthcare industry, another in the government sector. So we are very strong in the government, healthcare, and financial sectors, and these are the kind of customers that we find more success in. So if you have such customers of these profiles, right, then today is definitely the session for you to get this new kind of security-focused solution for your customers as well. So on a high level thing is really this word about information security. EasiShare itself started not with information security. In fact, it started more with mobility. Think about like 6-7 years back, like when iPhone started getting more common and it's more mobility. Then it went to a little bit more collaboration space. And finally, at this stage today, right, we are really all about security. So as Miguel has mentioned, right, we are all about the file security platform that we have here at EasiShare, and that's our positioning today. So in this space, right, what we do see that some keywords driving, if you are talking to C-suite level people, right, some of the keywords that is coming out that we hear is that first, there is the idea of digital workplace governance. So workplaces are getting more digital and organizations are struggling to govern how users handle the data, especially transferring them, where are the data moving to. That's the first area. Second area is this idea of cyber resilience. So cyber resilience, a couple of years back when I get this term, was more like the idea of data protection. And most of the time, this concept ties back to the ransomware issues. So things like data loss due to encryption by ransomware. And this is where a lot of solutions out there is then coming in to say you need a form of like a backup and recovery, easy backup and recovery solution. There are a lot of backup solutions. Some of them, they do very well in backup, but they might not perform as well when it comes to the recovery and real-time requirements of the RTO, RPO kind of requirements that's getting more and more strict. And the third area that we realize that is coming in more and more is that in the past, very few people talk about where exactly the data are stored and residing. But in recent years, due to scandals, due to regulations, there are more and more organizations having to take note of the idea of data sovereignty and where the data is being stored in. So in these three pillars, right, largely speaking, forms under this information security that we speak to our prospects and customers as well. And these are the areas that we work in. So drilling a bit deeper, more specific on the idea of information security, right, which is definitely not new, gain more popularity and become more sophisticated over the years. But we go back to this traditional triad of CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So in terms of confidentiality, organizations are increasingly expected to ensure that sensitive information are protected from unauthorized disclosure. So now your customers have the responsibility to ensure that there's no accidental data leakages and stuff, or like any espionage and stuff. So that is an increased responsibility over there. Secondly, in terms of integrity, there's also an idea that whatever that is stored, increasingly, a lot of stakeholders are expecting organizations to ensure that they remain accurate and reliable, not modified wrongly, not encrypted and unaccessible and stuff, which leads me to the third point of availability. Whenever users need a certain data to be available, nowadays they do expect it to be available when required. And in the event of a disaster, such as any fire, earthquake damages to certain primary data center, there's also an idea of how does the recovery get in place. Like for example, ransomware disaster coming in, how does the recovery happens? So these are definitely not new. What has changed is the intensity and requirements. So a lot of us here who are in the industry for quite a while already will definitely know all these concepts. What is the key difference that is driving this information security as well as EasiShare's positioning onto as a file security platform is that we are seeing tighter and tighter requirements on this. And this really stems out from things that happened in the recent few years as well. So we definitely know that in the recent years, right, there is a lot of talk about workplaces becoming more and more digitalization. I think it has come to a point where sometimes digital transformation is a word that we all keep hearing all over the place, and a lot of organizations sometimes they even have digital transformation department that's being set up. So it's really that drive over the recent years that more and more workplaces are going more digital. And at the same time, there's also a second trend in terms of data. So in recent years also, we keep hearing a lot about the value of data, the growth of data, how organizations must make use of data in order to bring their businesses to the next level. So with this idea of digitalization driving the productivity as well as data driving businesses, this makes the whole ecosystem about digital and data more and more widespread and more sophisticated. And thereabout, because of the value that digital and data is bringing, right, more and more attackers are also then targeting this area, and so encompassing the whole concept of information security. So that's the overall trends that we really speak about, and we really understand the problems that's faced, and then EasiShare is a space to solve some of the challenges that our customers are facing. So in more specific terms, right, I think more relatable to us is that we have definitely moved more from physical to digital. I think quite a while back, hard disk and thumb drive are very common. They are used quite frequently, but nowadays you do see that there's a reduction in the usage of them. A lot of times we are moving to more digital platform, whether is it like OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, SharePoint, or a product like EasiShare. The first step is definitely organizations going towards digital. And that is a low-hanging fruit that we have. So if you have customers that are still very physically driven, have a lot of hard disk and thumb drive, which not as common nowadays really, there are still definitely the opportunities to move them to a more digital platform. And later on, I will elaborate among like why would customers choose EasiShare as compared to some other solutions for certain cases. So that I'll elaborate soon. But I think the first stage we have to acknowledge is that a lot of organizations, they are definitely on this digital drive. Some of our customers may still not yet be very digital because of a lot of reasons. Then this is the case whereby we should constantly revisit them, and someday they might see that they need to move, and then we are there to help them move to a more digital platform. So this is the very stage one. Not many left, but there's still many in the region. Sometimes there is still at the physical stage that we have to help them to move towards more digital, which is exactly what Crayon is also doing as well with their cloud initiatives, etc. Which leads me to this point, right? A lot of times I get asked like, okay, this customer is already using SharePoint. Why do they still need to buy another tool like EasiShare? So if you are not familiar with our tool, I think at the end of the session, we also open up to have a demo session to share a little bit more. In the gist of it, what Miguel has shared just now, EasiShare very commonly as a content collaboration tool is very similar to SharePoint. And what I want to do now is to then highlight what are the differences and some of the additional things that we do on top that can complement and augment even if a customer has SharePoint, right? So the first example is in terms of challenges in the file governance and visibility over activities. So we find that when some customers are using SharePoint alone, and then they started dumping every single file, all sorts of file into a SharePoint, whether it's meant to be used as a document collaboration, they generally see the trend that they start to find it hard to search for a document. And thereby, they start to have poor visibility on what kind of files are in the repository, where are the files going to. Now, definitely Microsoft itself, they have solutions to improve this, whether you buy additional add-ons or other things. But fundamentally itself, SharePoint, if you read Microsoft official documents, they are designed more for Office documents and more office kind of collaboration use case, and they don't work well, especially when files get very huge. There is also certain recommendations in terms of what size is perfect for SharePoint, and when it reaches beyond a certain limits, there are certain limitations that are also published as well. So we do see sometimes customers, if they do not have this plan of how they are using the tools and they misuse the tools, it's not because the tool is lousy, but just so happen that it's not used as intended and designed. So then customers find that they struggle to find their files, they complain that the system is no good, whereby actually it's not so much systems per se, as we all know, right? Sometimes it's about how we use the system. So one example that we have is that even we ourselves, and we have a couple of customers that do it this way, they value the features in SharePoint and they like to use it as a collaboration place, but they want to have another place to then file their completed documents. So it's a little bit like in the physical world, we used to have the idea of working files and archive files, right? Or when we talk about like in the kitchen, you might have some things that you store for longer terms, and then you take out certain things to do on your work on your kitchen table, and then you carve out your kitchen spaces accordingly. So similarly, same thing, right? Here we have ourselves, InspireTech is using EasiShare this way, as well as some of our customers, whereby documents that are work in process, we put them into SharePoint and we do that collaboration there using all the wonderful features that Microsoft is offering. Now, after things are completed and done, and we actually want to file it properly and stuff, right, we actually put into our EasiShare repository. So the reason of doing so is that then our team members are all clear as to like where to find working files and where to systematically find old files. So it's really go back to the physical world. Another example that I thought of is like drama video, right? So in Singapore, MediaCorp, definitely there will be a process whereby they store their tapes and stuff accordingly, clearly, which are in the working and which are done properly and filed properly. So same thing here, we have the whole thing to improve the work process and governance here. So the level of productivity drives. Now, beyond just the productivity thing, right, there's another second scenario, right, which goes back to the issue 2 here that we see sometimes. If you purely use SharePoint or some public tools, a lot of users are saying that they struggle to identify which files they actually shared externally, and they might accidentally share something wrongly, then thereby creating the risk of data leakages. So in here, very common sometimes we use as well, we share a link that is accessible via internet. And then after that, these links are kind of like, okay, we send them over and we don't think about it and they are there lying around. So it becomes very difficult to identify, something that you probably can ask your customers, or if your organization is using SharePoint as well, you can ask yourself in this simple question of like, would you be able to find all the links that you have shared publicly that anybody with the link can access? Or are you able to identify all the files that you have shared with a particular person? Like, for example, what are the files you shared to Miguel? Are you able to identify all of them? And if your answer is you're not sure, you might need additional effort to find that out. And that is that challenge there, especially in today's world, that when there's data leakages, we are all very concerned about it, right? So what some of our customers do is that in order to protect their users, right, what they do is that they segregate it separately. What I mean is that in SharePoint, they disable the external file sharing option. So with whatever that's within SharePoint, all the crown jewel, important documents, sensitive documents, is all kept within the organization only. You don't get to easily share them out. Now, what they do is that they introduce a little bit of inconvenience, but all in the mind of security, is to then use EasiShare as a separate repository to handle the external collaboration. So in the event that there's a data leakage happens, right, there's a way that can have visibility, as well as before data leakages even happen, these are also segregation for the users to then identify that if they share something on EasiShare that's external and whatever they do in SharePoint is protected internally. So there's a segregation there to then create a differences in the workspace. It's a little bit like your bedroom versus your living room kind of idea. So again, that whole strength in us in terms of segregating the repository, right? Now, the third issue is really the compliance requirements. So when using some of the online file exchange platforms, right, a lot of organizations now are being asked about like where exactly the data is being stored. Is it in Singapore, or is it in Hong Kong, or is it in the US? You know, there are more and more people asking these kind of questions. And some of the tools available out there, our customers might not have full control over this, and they might not be able to control when they're on those services, and they might need alternative solution then. So in this case, sometimes we ourselves might not be the one requiring the compliance, but what happens is that we might be the vendor of a government agency or an MNC that has such kind of requirements due to compliance or due to their own risk assessment that they need it. And then as a vendor, you might need to comply with that. And then also like, so some of our customers may actually also then need to comply with government policies and regulations because of the data that they deal with. So some examples that I have is that we have a prospect that is in the digital bank. They traditionally was putting everything in Google Drive, but what happened is that when they have to do the digital bank, there is some regulations that then come into them, and then they need to look for a solution that gives them the control over the data sovereignty. So that's the gist of the idea. So in the last part, quickly diving into the use cases, right? Like I said, very commonly ours is government, financial, and healthcare. So I'll start with a little bit with healthcare first. What happened here is that the challenges that this customer was facing is that they traditionally has always been sensitive documents. So their audit process has always required auditors to come on site physically to actually inspect the documents so that the documents don't get leaked out accidentally, right? But the pandemic has affected them heavily then when they can't have the auditors come down physically. And there's also the fear of like some shadow IT issues, like staff using unofficial tools or downloading, transferring things through thumb drive and losing the thumb drive. Another very common case that when it happens, customers come to us for our solution again. And thirdly is in terms of access management issue, there's this idea that auditors are not internal users, so they don't want to create into their Active Directory, but yet they want to control this access management and stuff. So they need a tool that has all these things. And that is where EasiShare came in with the idea that we have a system that they can control that generate the unique links for external sharing to auditors. And in this link, they can control the permissions of what the auditors can do. So a lot of things, they only want the auditors to have view-only access and not to allow them to download to then keep a copy on the auditor's laptop, which is outside of this healthcare organization already. And finally, this customer also loves our audit logs. They can easily trace when a file is being shared out. So sometimes auditors say they didn't receive it or like they didn't have it right. These audit logs really serve as a place to say that, oh, actually this was sent last week, or you might have missed the email, then you send again. So there is a data, all this supporting all these evidences, right? Yeah, and then moving on to the second use case now is a public sector use case. This is a bit different. So the earlier one is external sharing between an organization, a healthcare organization, and the external auditors. Now this is purely within internal, in the sense that this customer was actually using SharePoint, the on-premise SharePoint, not the online one, and they ran into maintenance and performance issues because they deal with a lot of large files. So this agency deals with a lot of engineering files, engineering drawing, videos, high resolution photos and stuff. And they started dumping everything into SharePoint, and they realized that when it hits a certain limit, it has a lot of performance issues. And at the same time, they had the traditional network drives, what we call as SMB, CIFS protocol, the network drives one. And the users find that they have multiple repositories with different interfaces. So where EasiShare comes in is that like we can become a unified file explorer. So if you don't understand how we can be a unified file explorer, this session is a bit short, but no worries, do contact us. We will come out with a deep dive. We share with you our demo and the solution and explain more how we can be a unified file explorer so that you can understand more and share with your customers as well. Of course, we definitely have a role-based access control system, our own EasiShare permission within our system as well. And EasiShare becomes a centralized platform that includes very strong audit logs with the ability to pipe into SIEM tools for additional log analytics. Very important now, especially IT data security incident are getting all the limelight. So with that, right, I also want to conclude on with my final slide here is that in today's complex world, we do know that a single solution will never solve all security issues at hand. So what we did over the our journey of building EasiShare is that we partner with a lot of our partners. Traditionally, we started more towards the data management end. So Dell, IBM on the storage side, and then on the cloud, right, AWS, Microsoft side, we have those connectors to the storages. So to find out more, really just come to contact us. And we expanded more towards like encryption, endpoint security for the antivirus and the scanning, CDR, data diode, digital signature, SIEM. So not diving into details, but if you have customers that is really looking at all these things in their information security needs and want to have a more comprehensive approach and solution towards their security needs, right? And they are starting to tell you like, oh, they want to explore a data diode, they want like CDR, and that is where EasiShare we can come in as a file security platform that can work with all these solutions to provide a more comprehensive security approach towards how organizations handle their file exchanges and security behind their data security and information security approach and address some of their challenges. And with that, that's really the end of my presentation for this short session. And I'll hand it over to Miguel for the remaining part of the webinar. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Teck Wei. So now we have come to the Q&A session. I know we just left a few more minutes. So we do have a few questions, but why not let's do one question, and Teck Wei, maybe you can just help me answer this. So what are the more common file sharing solutions that you guys are seeing in the market? And is there any specific brands or using SharePoint or NAS? Do you mind sharing us with that on that?
Okay, so the quick one is traditionally, I think the network drive was the most common one. So the idea of network drive, SMB, right, the NAS kind of storages was the most common. Thereabout, what happened is that due to ransomware and stuff, and a lot of other issues, right, they're still popular, but they have declined a little bit in terms of popularity. Still some use cases from a non-end user kind of use cases, but they have moved on. And then nowadays, the more modern one, in terms of online, definitely the usual Dropbox box will come into play. But in terms of on-premise, sometimes that's where sometimes we see a gap that some customers want something like a Dropbox on a box kind of interface, but yet they want something that is like their on-premise kind of NAS, and they want to marry the two world together, right? And that is where then EasiShare come in to address some of their needs there.
Yeah, so I think somebody also asked like whether I will be sending over the slides. No worries, I will actually send over the slides over to you guys, and also the webinar recordings itself. And I think Jack in the audience actually did a quick message and say, do we actually address any DRM requirement? Maybe you want to take that take away?
So to that, I would say yes and no. So I also don't really want to oversell, but to some extent, if the customers is just concerned about restricting downloads, then yes, EasiShare does support that a little bit. But if they are more sophisticated about like really wrapping the file into a container such that it has to be open through specialized applications, not through the usual Microsoft Word, right? And then to really control that self-destruction and the expiry, right? Then that is something that EasiShare don't do. But we do keep a lookout, and we do know some of the partners that handle on to that end, like where they really will modify the file, and this Word document can no longer be opened up easily anymore. You really need to go through another tool to verify your identity, then to access the file. And if the file is expired, right, no way you can open up the file anymore. We do know that there are such solutions out there. And what we do is that we focus on our core capabilities in the collaboration, the file exchange, and the visibility of the audit logs. So that is really our core capabilities. And then for these requirements, right, like I did in my final slide there, we look for partners. So we don't really want to reinvent the wheel. We want to build this ecosystem that multiple solutions come together and solve our customers' issues. So that's our approach, even including DRM.
And thank you so much. So thanks everybody for your question. If you do have any further questions, you can always post them in the feedback form that we will actually be prompting you later. And before I wrap things up within the next 1 to 2 minutes, just a few takeaways that I would like to share with everybody so that everybody can take something away from today. So we do have like a SharePoint battle card that you guys can actually download. I'll definitely put in share with you guys over an email itself. And if you guys are interested to understand more about some of the limitations within SharePoint and what EasiShare can cover them, yeah, you can go ahead and scan them now, or I will definitely drop you a copy later on. And then for takeaway number 2 is very simple. If you guys are really curious about what EasiShare can do check us out on our YouTube channel. You can also see some of the technology partners that we work with to actually provide your customers a much more holistic approach when it comes to cybersecurity strategy. And if you are curious about, you know, our product, you want to have a deep dive demo session, that kind of stuff, you can definitely highlight your interest in the feedback form. And we are also running a partner incentive program to incentivize partners for creating a meeting for invite with the prospect and also closing a deal with us. And if you guys are really interested, please highlight them in the feedback form. So thank you so much for your participation today. I will not hold everybody back. And if you guys are just want to take a quick contact us quickly, you know, this is my contact details. You can just take it off from the screen. So thank you so much everybody for your time. So thank you. Thanks, Takeway, and thanks, Valerie, for participating as well. Thank you.